That morning was so peaceful that I could not imagine what was in store for me. One phone call and I found myself in the center of events that made me question everything. The outcome will shock you. Most mornings, my life felt like clockwork in the best way. Warm coffee at dawn, boots on before the sun came up, and a long stretch of road ahead with kids climbing onto my school bus, still wiping sleep from their eyes. I liked the routine. I liked knowing where the lines were. Jenny always had breakfast ready by the time I got back. Our daughter would be drawing at the table or watching cartoons. At night, we had dinners with clinking silverware and quiet smiles. I thought we were solid, nothing perfect, but strong. I thought I knew what love looked like after 15 years. Then one evening, everything shifted in a way that didn't leave room for pretending. I'd taken Scout, our old mutt, for his usual walk. The light was soft, skies glowing pink over the fields behind the house. When I came back, Jenny wasn't upstairs. I heard her voice coming from the basement. Software, gentle, but it wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. I crept closer, listening hard, holding my breath like I'd stumbled into a room I shouldn't have. Then I heard it, clear enough to slice through my ribs. I'll keep him close a bit longer, then everything will be ours. I didn't go down. I didn't say anything. Just turned, walked out the back door again, and stood in the yard until the chill bit through my sleeves. I tried to convince myself I'd heard it wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. But that night, she barely looked at me. And in the morning, something was gone from her. No teasing, no smile, no nothing. Just ice. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't unhear her voice or those words. I watched her closer. The way she stared at her phone a little too long. How she stepped outside to take calls. How her laughs felt rehearsed. Then a week later, I got a text from an unknown number. Your Jenny isn't who you think she is. Attached was a photo, her arms wrapped around some guy next to a van at the Sinclair station outside town, time-stamped the day before. I didn't confront her. I didn't reply. Instead, I went straight to the garage and pulled out an old video camera I hadn't touched in years, the one we used for birthday parties and backyard barbecues. I charged it, tested the angle, and hid it behind the pothos plant in the living room. I needed proof, not just for me, but for whatever came next. The next day after work, I pulled the footage and sat alone in my shed to watch it. There she was, pacing the living room with the phone to her ear. I turned the volume up, heart racing like it knew what was coming. She laughed, then said, "He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll get the property signed over before the end of the month, while he still thinks everything's fine." Everything in me went still. Not just a physical betrayal, but a plan. A calculated, deliberate setup. She wasn't just stepping out. She was selling me off in pieces. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. I laid in bed beside her and counted the seconds between each of her breaths. My life had become foreign overnight, like I'd woken up in someone else's nightmare. At work, I started slipping, missed a turn on my route, dropped a kid at the wrong stop, couldn't focus long enough to hold a thought. My neighbor Joe, a tough old Marine who lived next door, caught me in the yard one night and handed me a beer without a word. After a few sips, it all spilled out. Every twisted detail. The photo, the basement, the video. He just nodded like he'd seen worse, then said something that stayed with me. You either fall or become a predator. The next morning, I stopped pretending. I went to the safe and pulled out the folder with our land documents. There it was. Power of attorney signed by Jenny, transferring rights to a man named Larry Ginz. The same Larry from the gas station photo. I stared at that name until it burned into my skull. That was the moment I stopped grieving. Whatever future she had planned didn't include me. But she'd made one mistake. She underestimated what a quiet man can become when you push him too far. The name Larry Ginz wouldn't leave my head. I must have stared at it on that forged contract 100 times, mouthing it like a curse I couldn't spit out. She'd given him power over our land. The fields behind the house where our daughter took her first steps, where Jenny used to hang laundry and joke about moving someplace warmer one day. She handed it all over like it was nothing. And the bastard she handed it to? I didn't know his face beyond that gas station photo, But I already hated the man. I hated him like he'd been born to ruin everything I built. I spent the next few nights in a fog, but not a weak one. The kind of fog you move through with purpose, slow and deliberate, while the world around you keeps spinning like it always has. Jenny started acting even colder, like she couldn't be bothered to keep up the act anymore. She didn't know I'd already seen behind the curtain. She didn't know the game had shifted. I wasn't looking for reasons anymore. I was looking for openings. I told Joe everything, showed him the contract, the footage, even the gas station photo. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and said, "Let's go find this Larry." It was the first time in weeks I'd felt anything close to control. Joe made a few calls, and by the next day we were on the road, heading for a mid-sized city 2 hours east where Larry Ginz was supposedly registered as a business consultant. I kept my thoughts close, jaw clenched, fingers twitching against the steering wheel every time I thought about Jenny smiling at that man like he'd saved her. We posed as small-town investors looking to buy farmland for development. Joe handled most of the talking. He had that calm, squared-off confidence that people didn't question. At a dingy strip mall office, we were handed a flyer for Ginz and Associates. The building had dust on the windows and a flickering open sign that clearly lied. No receptionist, just a guy in a back room who looked up too fast when we said Larry's name. "He's not here," the man muttered, already trying to usher us out. But Joe pressed, and eventually we got enough. Larry had a reputation: fraud, debt, bad checks, fake investments. He was always one step ahead of lawsuits, 2 steps behind the IRS. The guy was a ghost who smiled through court summons and left wreckage behind. Exactly the kind of man who'd know how to use someone like Jenny. We drove back in silence. My head was burning with it now. Not just rage, but disbelief. How long had she been planning this? How many nights had I sat across from her at dinner, chewing quietly while she looked me in the eyes and lied without flinching? That night I didn't sleep. I paced the living room until Scout started growling at the creaks in the floorboards. Around 3 a.m., I got online and ordered something I never thought I'd need: a custom vinyl banner. I uploaded the gas station photo, wrote the words myself in bold, black lettering: Jenny and Larry, betrayal begins with trust. The site confirmed delivery within 2 days. When it arrived, I opened the package with hands that felt colder than they should have. The banner was large, bright, impossible to miss. I folded it carefully, slid it under the seat of my truck, and waited until the sun set and the town quieted down. Then I drove to the elementary school where Jenny worked as a counselor. I parked 2 blocks away, carried the rolled banner behind the building, and scaled the front-facing brick wall with rope and hooks I hadn't used since I helped put up the town's holiday lights years ago. I knew the exact spot, above the main entrance, right where morning drop-offs would be heaviest. I anchored the banner, double-checked the knots, then stepped back and stared at it for a full minute. There they were, her arms around Larry, her face lit up with something I hadn't seen in months. And beneath it, those words in thick black letters that would rip through any lie she tried to tell. When the banner was secure, I climbed down and disappeared into the night. By morning, half the town had seen it. Phones buzzed, cars slowed, and parents whispered as they dropped their kids off. Some just stared, others took pictures. By the time Jenny arrived, the school staff had already gathered outside. I watched from my truck across the street, windows up, Scout in the passenger seat like a silent witness. Jenny pulled into the lot, stepped out, and froze when she saw it. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. She ran toward the entrance, shouting something, trying to pull the banner down with shaking hands before the principal stopped her. I drove off before she saw me. I didn't need to see what happened next. I knew this town. People talk. People remember. Her face was no longer just a part of the community. It was the story of the week. That evening, Jenny came home late. Her makeup was smeared, eyes wild. She slammed drawers, cursed under her breath, and barely looked at me. But I didn't ask questions. I didn't speak. I just sat there on the couch, staring through the walls, already thinking about the next move. She thought this was about embarrassment. She didn't know yet. I wasn't trying to shame her. I was preparing to bury her lies, one fact at a time. The fallout from the banner came fast. By the next morning, Jenny's name was echoing through town halls, church potlucks, and gas station corners like a siren no one could shut off. It wasn't just gossip. It was scandal, the kind small towns feed on. She tried to play it off at first, pretending the photo was old or taken out of context, but you could see the cracks spreading in her face like glass under pressure. Her smile was too tight. Her voice had a quiver she couldn't mask. People didn't buy it. They never do when the truth's staring them dead in the face from 20 feet up on a school wall. She called in sick for the next 2 days. Then came the emergency school board meeting. I didn't plan to attend at first, but Joe talked me into it, said it was time I stopped giving her space to twist the story. So I walked into that room calm and slow, wearing the same jacket I wore when we got married. Jenny was already there, seated between two administrators. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not fragile, just diminished, like someone who knew the current had turned against her and had no idea how deep the water went. She cried, real tears, accused me of harassment, said I was unstable, claimed I doctored the photo. For a second, I almost believed her. That's how convincing she used to be. But then I reached into my coat and pulled out the flash drive. I didn't say a word, just handed it to the board chair and stepped back. They plugged it in, hit play. The video showed her in our living room, pacing with her phone, talking about how she'd sell the land behind my back, while he still thinks everything's fine. You could feel the shift in the room. All the polite support drained from her corner. The counselor across the table closed his notebook. The assistant principal leaned back like he wanted no part of the mess. She tried to defend herself, said it was taken out of context, said I was manipulating things, but no one was listening anymore. The room had already passed judgment, and it wasn't in her favor. 2 days later, the school board issued their decision. Jenny was terminated due to ethical misconduct. They offered her a resignation option to save face. She refused, too proud, too stubborn to understand how far she'd fallen. Then came the silence, the cold, heavy silence that follows a life collapsing in on itself. But it didn't stop there, because as Jenny's world crumbled, so did Larry's. I don't know if it was fear or guilt, but after the video surfaced, Larry packed up and fled town like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. His business line disconnected. His website vanished. The lawyer I'd quietly hired confirmed he'd skipped out on 3 pending fraud hearings in the city. Coward didn't even have the decency to stay and fight. Left Jenny holding the ruins of their little scheme while he disappeared into the smoke. With him gone, I had room to breathe and time to strike back legally. I filed suit the following week, backing it with the footage, the forged contract, and a notarized comparison of signatures from our bank. It took just 1 court hearing to unravel everything. The judge ruled the power of attorney fraudulent. Ownership of the land reverted to me. Jenny tried to object, claimed she'd been misled by Larry, said she never meant to harm me, but the court didn't care about intentions. Only documents, and the documents were mine again. She walked out of that courtroom with nothing, no job, no credibility, no land, just a pile of lawyer fees and a growing debt she couldn't answer for. I didn't speak to her during the entire process, not once. I let the silence say everything I didn't need to. That night she tried to break into my house. It was just after midnight. I'd been lying on the couch with the lights off, half awake, when Scout started barking like mad. I grabbed the bat from behind the front door and eased it open just enough to see movement on the porch. Jenny. Hoodie pulled low, hands shaking as she fumbled with the lock. She didn't know I'd changed everything. Locks, codes, motion lights, even the alarm system. The moment she tried to force the handle, the siren blared to life. Floodlights exploded on. She screamed, turned to run, but it was too late. 2 cruisers were there in under 5 minutes. Small town speed. 1 officer recognized her instantly. I stayed inside, watched through the peephole as they cuffed her on the steps and read her the warning. She didn't fight, didn't say a word, just stared at the ground like it finally hit her. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't salvageable. The next morning I got a call from her sister, frantic, asking what happened. I told her the truth, every piece of it. She didn't argue, didn't even sound surprised. For the first time in weeks I felt still, but I wasn't finished, because taking back what was mine wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Jenny stayed hidden after the Banner incident, but this town has a long memory and a short fuse. Her name was in every conversation, her face on every phone screen. I didn't need to say anything. People did it for me. She thought staying quiet would make it fade. But that kind of shame doesn't go away in places like this. It sticks. And I wasn't done. Not even close. Joe and I weren't just looking to shame her. We wanted to unravel the whole scam. Larry Ginz had disappeared after the video surfaced, but people like him always leave a mess behind. We drove back to the city, this time as ourselves. No pretense. No fake investment pitch. Just two pissed-off men with time and a list of court records. At the county building, we found Larry's name tied to fraud, debt, and a dozen lawsuits. He owed money to banks, churches, even a children's foundation. He was the type who smiled through a lie and vanished with your life savings. The address he used was a half-burnt, abandoned dump now under foreclosure. He'd conned people across 3 counties, and Jenny gave him power over everything I owned. The deeper we looked, the more I realized. She didn't just betray me. She picked the worst possible man to gamble our life on, and now I had enough dirt to make sure nobody forgot either of them. Back home, I had another banner printed. This one even bigger, clearer. Jenny and Larry's photo side by side with Larry in handcuffs from a previous arrest. I didn't hang it. I left it anonymously at the local newspaper, along with a note, "This is who she trusted with our future." They ran it 2 days later. Front page. The headline made it official. Local school counselor linked to convicted felon in land fraud. It didn't just destroy what was left of her career. It nailed her into the wall of public memory. That same day, I saw her on the street. Hoodie up, head down, moving like a ghost. She spotted me from across the road. No words, just fear. She disappeared behind a line of cars like she was afraid I might follow. I didn't. I didn't need to. Her world was already in freefall. Then the court ruled on the land. With the evidence, recordings, forged signatures, Larry's rap sheet, the judge tossed out the contract. The land was mine again. Jenny didn't even fight it. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. She walked out with nothing but legal debt and a cold, hollow stare. That night, she tried to break into my house. It was past midnight when scouts started barking. I got to the door and saw her outside, fumbling with the lock. Hoodie pulled low, hands shaking. What she didn't know was the whole system had been changed. Locks, codes, cameras. The second she tried the handle, the alarm screamed to life. Floodlights lit up the porch. She bolted, but not fast enough. The cops got there quick. Small town, small world. They cuffed her right there while I watched through the window, silent. She didn't resist, just stood there as it all fell in around her. A few days later, Joe sat me down with a question in his eyes. "You ready for the last push?" I nodded. We set up a staged run-in between Jenny and the local sheriff, a casual gas station chat that wasn't casual at all. The sheriff wore a body cam. She didn't know it, and when she started talking, it all spilled out. "Larry said it'd be clean," she told him. "Once the land sold, we'd disappear. Tom wouldn't even know." That recording went straight to the prosecutor. She didn't get jail, but they gave her a suspended sentence, probation, and a record. Her counseling license went under review. Her life was now a cracked foundation with no way to rebuild. Then came the leak. Her social media accounts were hacked. No one knows by who, and someone posted the original house footage. Her words about selling the land, deceiving me. They added the gas station recording too. It all went public. Overnight, she became a viral example of betrayal. Her friends blocked her. Her phone stopped ringing. All she had left was a bottle and a reputation in pieces. Her sister called me again, panicked, said she found Jenny sitting in front of a mirror, muttering my name, watching the video play on repeat. She'd been drinking, hadn't eaten in days. Looked like someone who didn't recognize her own reflection anymore. For a second, I felt something. Maybe pity, maybe regret. But I didn't call her. I didn't stop what I'd started. Because I wasn't finished. Not yet. Jenny had become a ghost in our town. Seen, avoided, and whispered about. Her name wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a warning. People crossed streets to avoid her, closed doors before she could knock. I didn't gloat. I watched. I needed to see when she'd break, when the last of her pride would snap under the weight of what she'd done. It didn't take long. Joe texted me a photo one morning. Jenny outside the courthouse talking to Lori, my cousin. She hadn't spoken to Lori in years. Now she was trying to use family, twisting stories to win someone, anyone, back to her side. I knew that look on her face. Desperate, cornered. And when sympathy didn't come, she kept pushing. She started popping up around town like she belonged again, forcing smiles, pretending the storm had passed. It hadn't. Everyone knew better. She left a box on my porch one night, some old toys, a photo of the three of us wrapped like a gift. I didn't show it to Claire. I buried it in the shed with the rest of the junk from a life she'd already thrown away. When friends and family turned their backs, Jenny rewrote the story. She told anyone who'd listen that I doctored the footage, hacked her accounts, twisted everything out of spite, but her voice didn't have power anymore. Just noise, hollow, defensive, weak. And then came her biggest mistake. She tried to drag the law into it, filed a report claiming I'd harassed her, followed her, even made the videos myself. The deputy who called sounded bored before he finished the sentence. I told him to check the sheriff's recording. The case was dropped by the next afternoon. That should have been her warning to stop, but she wasn't done. She reached out to a church counselor in the next county, told them she was a victim, painted me as some bitter ex out for blood. But the counselor called me instead, not to accuse, but to warn. Said Jenny's stories were unraveling. Her version of events kept shifting. She was slipping, mentally, emotionally, into something even more dangerous than before. Then the final blow came from someone I didn't expect, a victim of Larry Ginz's scams in the city. He saw Jenny's face in the video and swore she was part of a previous fraud deal. The prosecutor opened an investigation. They contacted me for evidence, and I handed over everything, recordings, documents, dates. No commentary, no need. Her own words were enough. Jenny was summoned for questioning, and she panicked. Called Joe, of all people. Left a voicemail, crying, begging me to stop. "You don't have to do this," she said. "I didn't mean to lose everything." But she had. And not because of what I'd done, but because of every lie she chose to live in. I didn't call back. That week I drove past the school where she used to work. Her name was gone. Her office turned into a reading room. Photos replaced. Records wiped. It was like she'd never existed there at all. Still, I wasn't finished. There was one more step. One more move to make sure she didn't just lose everything, but that she understood what it meant to take a man's trust and rip it apart. And this next one, it would leave her no place left to hide. It had all been taken from her, the job, the reputation, the trust, and the future she tried to steal. But still, she clung to whatever scraps were left, like a rat in a sinking ship refusing to drown. After the prosecutor opened the investigation, Jenny stopped showing her face entirely. Word spread fast that she'd been questioned for her ties to Larry's wider scams. It wasn't just local anymore. She was now listed as a person of interest in a multi-county fraud probe, and the people who had once pitied her were now dead silent. There's a certain kind of quiet that follows someone when even sympathies run dry. I knew she wasn't done trying to claw her way out. People like her never go down clean. They go down thrashing, blaming, gasping for a rope no one's holding. That's when I set up the final blow. It needed to be clean. No rage, no spectacle, just precision. Something undeniable. The local sheriff owed Joe a favor, one that went back to an old call in a snowstorm, the kind of favor you don't forget. So we worked out the setup. Jenny still made supply runs to the gas station outside town, the one where she used to meet Larry before he vanished. The sheriff would be there at the same time. Casual, polite, nothing official. All he had to do was start a conversation and let her talk. And she did. The moment she saw a friendly face, she crumbled. Told him Larry was the one who pushed the plan. Said I was never supposed to find out. Admitted she knew the documents were fake, but just wanted a way out. She laughed a little too loud, like it was all behind her now, like she was just explaining a bad phase. What she didn't realize, what she never realized, was that his vest was recording the whole thing. Every word, every breath. She confessed to everything with the casual guilt of someone who thought consequences were a choice. A week later, she was back in court, this time with a defense attorney who looked like he regretted answering his phone. The court gave her a suspended sentence, 2 years probation, financial monitoring, and the real kicker, public admission of guilt on the fraud charges. They offered her a plea. She took it, probably thinking it was her best chance at starting over. But that was never going to happen, not after what came next. Her social media accounts had been locked for weeks, quiet, abandoned. Then one night they came back online, and not by her. The videos we'd collected, the original footage from our house, the gas station recording, and now the sheriff's confession, they were edited together into one damning reel and uploaded to her pages by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. It opened with her voice. "I'll keep him close a bit longer." Followed by images of Larry, the forged contract, her courtroom confession. It spread like wildfire. Every platform, every inbox, every person she'd once lied to, manipulated, tried to pull back into her orbit. They all saw the full picture now. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just lying to a husband. This was a woman who tried to erase a man's life from under his feet and then cried when she slipped on the knife she'd planted. She tried to recover, claimed her accounts were hacked, said the video was edited. But this time, no one even bothered to reply. She was finished, socially exiled, professionally blacklisted. Even the people who once defended her now used her name in warnings. Then came the final unraveling. She tried reaching out to my daughter again, this time through a fake profile, offering apologies, sweet little messages, pretending to be someone else. But Claire knew. Even kids can smell guilt when it stinks loud enough. She showed me the messages, confused and a little scared. That's when I knew Jenny had nothing left but delusion. Her sister called again soon after. She was crying, said Jenny had stopped answering texts, wouldn't leave the house. She found her one night slumped in front of the bathroom mirror, wine spilled on the tile, watching the viral video on her phone like it was the only thing she could feel. Her hair was a mess, her eyes empty. She kept replaying the part where she said I'd never know, whispering the words along with herself. She'd become a ghost trapped in her own recording. I didn't answer her sister's plea for help. I didn't ask if Jenny was okay, because this wasn't about watching her suffer. It was about her owning what she did. And this was finally it. She couldn't twist it anymore, couldn't hide behind excuses or second chances. Her world wasn't falling apart. It had already fallen, and now she was just crawling through the rubble, searching for pieces that didn't exist anymore. The house she used to decorate with seasonal wreaths and Instagram posts was now silent. Curtains drawn, weeds in the yard. She'd become the kind of cautionary tale people tell their kids when they talk about choices. She wasn't feared. She wasn't hated. She was done. And while she was unraveling in that mirror, I was packing bags in the hallway, because it was time to leave this town behind for good. Time to take what was left of my life and start building something new from it. Without her. We left before sunrise, just as the mist was still pulling itself off the fields, the last breath of Iowa clinging to the ground like it didn't want us to go. I didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't feel the need. The people who mattered already knew what we'd been through. The rest could make up their own endings. I hitched the trailer, checked the locks one last time, and climbed into the truck. Claire sat beside me, flipping through her coloring book in the back seat, humming quietly to herself. And beside her, Claire, my daughter's favorite teacher. Now something more than that, though neither of us had dared to name it yet. We headed west, past the borders of town, past the old gas station where everything started to fall apart, past the diner where I used to meet Jenny on our lunch breaks. I watched those places pass like ghosts in the rear view, each one a scar I didn't need to pick at anymore. The sky opened wider the farther we drove, the kind of endless blue you only really notice when you finally escape the cage you were pretending wasn't locked. We didn't have a final destination, just the coast. That was the plan. Keep moving until the air smelled like salt and the roads curved with the sea. We took back roads most of the way, stopping in little towns when we felt like it, sleeping in the trailer under moonlight that didn't feel like it belonged to anyone but us. Some nights we barely spoke. Others, we stayed up late drinking cocoa, talking about music or the best gas station sandwiches in the Midwest. It wasn't flashy, it was quiet, but it was real. And real had been missing from my life for a long damn time. A few weeks into the trip, we found a bluff by the coast. An old lighthouse stood there, crooked but proud, the kind of place you wouldn't find on a tourist map. It wasn't busy, just the sound of waves below and the occasional cry of gulls circling above. We parked the trailer in a small pull-off, built a fire from driftwood, and sat together in silence as the sun dipped low, setting the ocean on fire. Claire read to my daughter that night, something soft, something about magic trains and glowing stars. I stood outside the trailer, letting the wind tangle through my hair, watching the last bit of light vanish behind the water. In my hand, I held a piece of paper, crumpled, torn around the edges from being folded too many times. My daughter had drawn it weeks ago. 3 stick figures, me, her, and Claire. Above it, she'd written, "My new family." I stared at that little drawing until my eyes stung. Then I reached for my phone, opened the archive, and found the last message Jenny ever sent me. I didn't even read it, just stared at the date, almost 6 months old now. Then I tapped delete. No ceremony, no dramatic breath, just gone, like it should have been from the start. And in that moment, I didn't just feel quiet, I felt alive. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't about winning, it was about standing here on the other side of everything she tried to take from me and realizing I still had enough left to start again. Jenny had burned her world to the ground chasing something that was never real. I walked out of mine holding my daughter's hand. She destroyed herself trying to take everything, and I rebuilt without needing to take anything back. We stayed at the lighthouse for 2 more days. Let the sea wash over the last echoes of Iowa. Then we hit the road again, headed south along the coast, windows down, music up, Claire's laughter filling the space between us like it had always belonged there. Somewhere between the cliffs and the endless blue, I looked back only once, and not for her. Never again for her. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.